need creative approach to bridge financing gap. Bank of Industry MD is the one saying this. The chairman of the Association of Nigerian Development Finance Institutions, talking about DFI, Mr. Olukayode Piton, has said that DFIs need fresh ideas, creative approaches, and collaborative efforts to bridge financing gap and drive transformative changes that Nigeria needs. Peter said this on Thursday in Abuja at the 3rd Association of Nigerian Development Finance Institutions Annual General Assembly with the theme Innovative Financing for Developmental Impact. The program was attended by stakeholders in the development finance sector. Peter, who is the managing director of Bank of Industry, said as Nigeria is currently home to an estimated 200 million citizens, I beg your pardon, it was projected to experience the largest population growth in Africa by 2050 to about 400 million people. You heard that, 400 million people is what is been projected for Nigeria come 2050. He said, as the country strive to achieve sustainable development goals and address global challenges, it had become increasingly clear that traditional financing models were inadequate. Peter said we need fresh ideas, creative approaches, and collaborative efforts to bridge the financing gap and drive the transformative changes our country desperately need. This is where innovative financing mechanisms that will complement traditional DFI's funding source come to play. By utilizing specialized funding arrangements complemented by non-financial services, we as DFIs are able to act as growth catalysts to the development of the Nigerian economy, he said. He added that, as we all know, DFIs play a significant role in ensuring sustainable economic and social development. This is evident in developed and developing economies where DFIs are instrumental to their economic successes. Therefore, we must continuously work together, leveraging on our expertise, resources, and networks to unlock transformative projects by working in synergy with the organized private sector and our respective governments. Collectively, we can deliver the level of sustainable social and economic development that Africa needs. Speaking on the importance of international cooperation and solidarity in advancing innovative financing for developmental impact, Peter said developed countries could support developing countries by providing resources, technology transfer, and capacity building. Multilateral institutions therefore have a critical role to play in coordinating efforts, mobilizing resources, and ensuring the effective implementation of innovative financing mechanisms. He said this is quite apt. This is the right time for us to think outside of the box, to see that we change from our traditional source of financing to innovative way of financing. Just like we talked about this a couple of days ago, talking about how Nigeria can domesticate some of the policies that we have. You discover that a lot of policies might be working elsewhere, but when you bring them down to Nigeria, they tend to not survive the test of time. So it is okay for us to now think outside of the box, and it cut across virtually every facet of our endeavor. Whatever we do as a country, we have to think outside the box and be creative and innovative. Nigeria is blessed with so many creative and innovative minds. We are talented in every endeavor of life. It depends on how well we utilize it, how well we use it, and how we even set mechanism to develop the talent and achieve the desired potential that it already has. So it is very essential that we look at alternative source of financing, that is by bringing more innovative means to add up to the traditional that we are accustomed with. It is a very good one from the MD of the Bank of Industry here in Nigeria, talking about Mr. Peter. Let's move forward to another headline that we have concerning story. Man trains exporters as AFCFTA implementation begins. Man, talking about Manufacturers Association of Nigeria, Export Group has trained local exporters as 8 African countries have commenced export under the African Continental Free Trade Agreement Guided Trade Initiative. The chairman of MANEG, that is Manufacturers Association of Nigeria Export Group, Mrs. Odiri Erewa Megson, revealed this at a 2-day capacity building training for exporters on Tuesday in Lagos. The training was organized by MANEG in partnership with British American Tobacco Nigeria, Indorama Group, Gongoni Company, Cadbury Nigeria, Guinness Nigeria, Right Food, and Spectra Industry, I beg your pardon. According to Erewa Megson, as the government continues to take steps to ensure the country's participation in the Africa Continental Free Trade Agreement, MANEG is determined to build the capacity of its members to optimize their understanding of the Free Trade Agreement and take full advantage of the benefits. She said so far, the practical implementation of AFCFTA started in September 2022 with the export of coffee products from Rwanda to Ghana and the export of Exide battery from Kenya to Ghana under the Guided Trade Initiative within the 8 state parties that have met the minimum requirements for trade under the agreement. The state parties include Rwanda, Cameroon, Egypt, Ghana, Kenya, Mauritius, Tanzania, and Tunisia. These countries are already operating on the Guided Trade Initiative without Nigeria. She said MANEG was optimistic that Nigeria would be among the state parties that would be participating on the platform. She said informed decision to collaborate to collaborate with the National Action Committee on AFCFTA Secretariat to train exporters and equip them with the requisite information to trade under the AFCFTA. She added this training is part of our efforts to reposition MANEG to serve in its capacity as the leading and most recognized non-oil export promotion advocacy group in the country. She further said she enjoined every participant to be involved in the conversations, taking in as much as possible information from this 2-day training and asking the relevant questions so that we extract full value from the training. MANEG is keen to collaborate with key stakeholders in the public and private sector to promote and protect the interests of non-oil exports in Nigeria. This is something that is quite commendable when you talk of the AFCFTA. It is an initiative that will go a long way in boosting continental trade between African nations. You discover that in Africa we have over 42 to 43 different currencies. Yes, just like we have the Naira in Nigeria, you have the cedis in Ghana, and also other countries have their own. Benin Republic have Cypher, so also other African countries have theirs. But the unfortunate thing is that it's even harder for you to do business with a local African currency than it is for you to do with dollar. Dollar doesn't belong to us, but we have dollarized our economy in Africa, that if you take dollar to every country in Africa, you tend to have power of dominance over the country's currency, and that is not how it's supposed to be. And how do we get out of the woods? By creating such trade agreement and initiative between African countries. If at all I have products, non-oil products that I want to export out of Nigeria, I should be able to have a free movement or free passage and also access to the market in Ghana, in Benin, in Mauritius, in Tanzania, in Tunisia, because we all fall within the African Union. We are all African countries. So unless and until the African leaders come to make sure that this initiative works, it sees the light of the day. Just like the information has it that other countries have started already benefiting from this Africa Free Continental Trade Agreement, but Nigeria was not part of those that have started benefiting in the GTI. That is the initiative that has started already. So now a training has taken place. Manufacturers Association of Nigeria Export Group has trained local exporters to take care of that, to see how they can utilize the opportunity and potential that lies in the Guided Trade Initiative. This is something that we will find a day on Business Around Town to bring an expert so that we look in depth into this concept of Africa Free Trade Continental Agreement, because it's something that can go a long way in taking a lot of people out of poverty. we'll use it to expose Nigerians on what you can export outside the shores of Nigeria, because the opportunity lies so much in that regard. I could recall a couple of years ago when Dangote was granting an interview, he was saying that there is a kind of blockade or not so free movement in terms of moving his products from Nigeria to a neighboring country, neighboring African country. When in real sense, if you talk about Africanism, we all belong to the same continent, so we should be able to have some sort of level playing field, some sort of relationship, some sort of business understanding between African countries, because we all belong to the same class. All right, that is that about this particular headline. Let's move forward to see what we have on other business headline also. This one is coming from Lagos. Sustain economic interventions, LCCI tells federal government. Talking about Lagos Chamber of Commerce. The Lagos Chamber of Commerce and Industry has urged the federal government to sustain its targeted interventions in critical sectors like agriculture, manufacturing, export, infrastructure, and the like. Speaking at the Chamber State of the Economy Outlook press conference in Lagos on Tuesday, its president, Michael Olawale Cole, stated that high inflation, continuous rise in interest rates, and foreign exchange scarcity have stunted the growth of the manufacturing sector. According to him, growth in the manufacturing sector has remained subdued due to the high energy costs due to subsidy removal and electricity tariffs and the weakening purchasing power of Nigerians. He further stated that the federal government needed to sustain its targeted interventions in critical sectors like agriculture, manufacturing, export, infrastructure, and the likes. Olawale Cole also said that the government should focus on addressing the security challenges that had plagued the business community and negatively affected investment inflows. He said in the short term, growth in manufacturing is expected to remain weak due to squeezed consumer spending, while the outlook in the medium term is projected to improve due to subsidy removal, which may attract investment in oil refining and other opportunities in the sector. We advocate that more policy reforms should be embarked upon by the government to improve the business environment, boost investors' confidence, stimulate economic growth, creates more employment, and alleviates poverty. The Lagos Chamber of Commerce and Industry president commended the government on recent economic reforms. Speaking further, he said, that he's talking about Olawale Cole, said that to reduce the chokes from disruption to supply chains from raw materials, manufacturers should be assisted with subsidized input and more allocation of forex for the importation of critical inputs. He added the cost of logistics has gone up due to the poor state of our roads and the inadequate connectivity amongst farms, factories, and markets. The LCCI commends the federal government for the recent effort to improve infrastructure, such as the completion of the second Niger Bridge, which is a key national infrastructure. LCCI would like to see more of such development for the organized private sector's benefit. This is also well thought of, because we have to get out of the wood as fast as we can, and how to do that is by creating more interventions that will aid the private sector to boom. Yes, I am an advocate of the public sector to come to life, to also thrive just like the private sector, but again, how far have we fared when it comes to the public sector in Nigeria? You look at how typically government business is being run, a lot of under remittance and even not remittance in some cases. We look at the NNPC, every now and then we see it in the news that NNPC failed to remit so amount of millions of dollars to the government. We saw issue of gas flaring, that government are not even getting what they should get from the oil companies who flare gas. The money they're supposed to pay as fine or penalties for gas flaring, the government don't get to receive that money. Although from the part of the Federal Inland Revenue Service, we should say kudos to them, because we have seen an improvement rather in terms of their collection, and it's also led to having to share more money this time around from the Federation allocation account, talking about FAC, where they share the money to the federal, state, and the local government. This month, about 907 billion was shared, and this is the second time throughout this year that we're seeing an increase in that regard. So it has always been going down, 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 but this time around there's an upgrade from that perspective. All right, don't forget, this is Business Around Town on Voice of the People 96.1 FM Abuja, and we are still within the first segment where we're giving you the headlines making news in the business world in Nigeria. Don't forget, after the first half, that is when we switch over to the second segment, we will be giving you some lifetime hack tips on how to have a sustainable business, how you can succeed in your business, especially when you're starting or when you're already in the business. All right, this is also talking about business. Business is overstretched, sliding into hopelessness, according to NECA. The Nigerian Employers Consultative Association has said organized businesses are overstretched due to the rising cost of living, which is caused by the hike in the price of premium motor spirit, petrol. Again, in a statement on Thursday, the Director General, NECA, Mr. Adewale Smart Oyerinde, urged the government to take more drastic steps to the slide into hopelessness for the organized businesses and Nigerians in general. Oyerinde expressed concerns that the rising cost of living was already hurting Nigeria's poverty and production index. In previous year, he said, the country witnessed perpetual rising inflation, commodity price instability, reduced industry capacity utilization, and a gradual dwindling of the purchasing power of Nigerians. These, he said, had kicked many enterprises out of existence and Nigerians below the poverty lines. He said, while the current administration has lined out policy plans to improve the living standards of the masses, such plans must be backed by deliberate and quick responses. As it is obvious to all, there is rising agitation owing to the rising cost of living, compounded by the increasing cost of PMS and the threats of increment in electricity tariff, amongst other liabilities to incur. While we commend the removal of fuel subsidies, renewed effort at curbing oil thefts, and the ongoing attempt to reform the tax administration, it is, however, important that government take more drastic steps to stop the slide into hopelessness by Nigerians and indeed organized businesses. The NECA boss said production plans were persistently displaced by frequent changing factors. According to him, it is instructive to note that businesses and households are currently being overstretched beyond their shock buffers. Already there is a drag on business operation as production plans are persistently displaced by frequently changing factor costs, and households are constantly adjusting consumption to accommodate their inadequate real income. He added that at this breaking point, it is imperative for governments to quickly take deliberate actions to mitigate the persistent rise in inflation to address the fast accelerating cost of living in the country. Such actions may include price stability mechanisms, periodic feedback on the progress of the ongoing work at the refineries, reversal of the value-added tax on automotive gas oil, and suspension of the planned upward review of electricity tariff hike. Very key. If you look at the refineries, the state of refineries, Nigeria should be made aware of the ongoing work. What is the progress? The government need to come out clean and tell Nigerians, just like we were having a conversation yesterday with our guest analyst Rufai Hussaini, where he was asking a question, challenging the NNPC this time around head on, to say, can you please tell Nigerians how much is the landing cost of petrol per liter in Nigeria? What are the other costs that you incur put together that would enable you arrive at 617 naira per liter? This is a question that NNPC are not answering. I could recall the last time the NNPCL group CEO was on television. He was asked a lot of questions that he was unable to give answers to. One of such questions was, how much is the landing cost of petrol per liter? Another question is, why is it that the petrol you have in stock in your farmhouse has already been subsidized? Why are you now reflecting a new price? Because it was beginning of June, when the subsidy payment has been covered from January to end of June. He said that is how market works. I don't know where on earth market works that way. If at all, do we have any record or any books that will tell us that as soon as we have a new price, let's just adjust the old stock to reflect the new price? Where is that done? Considering the fact that this is a government entity, government business that's supposed to make life easier, or to make things a bit easier for people, softer for people. It is a topic that we will certainly take more keen look at. However, in the midst of all of this, we have to survive. And part of what we are going to be discussing when we come back from these commercials is going to be the second segment of this show, where we tell you how and what to do to succeed in business. You don't want to miss that, because we are going to talk accountability. What part of accountability? If you stay with me and don't change your dial, you will get details of whatever I want to discuss, and you also get to call the phone line to call in and interact with us. This is Voice of the People, 96.1 FM Abuja, and my name is Ali Udoma. Stay with me and don't go nowhere.